Coming up on a new edition of Football Review slash Little Rooker Show, we got football to go over. Two big upsets tonight in high school football. So without further ado, your host, Little Rooker. Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to Football Review slash the Little Rooker Show. We got a lot to go over. We're going to go over tonight's game against East Juniata, the return of former Millersburg coach George Miskinnis as he is the coach of East Juniata. We'll go over that. We'll briefly go over last week's game too against Pine Grove. But let's first go over some scores, and there was like two shocking results, and we're going to start with the first one. Coming into the night, Susquehanna Township was 2-3 or 3-2. I think 2-3. McDevitt, one of the top teams in the state in AAA, and Susquehanna Township at Bishop McDevitt beats McDevitt tonight 35-26. And then we'll go to the other in the Tri-Valley League. Juniata's been putting up a lot of points. Tri-Valley undefeated in the league. Juniata has one loss. They lost in that shootout at Newport. Tri-Valley, they're coming off being shut out last week to Jim Thorpe. At home, Tri-Valley beat Juniata, and I'm kind of shocked at it. 29-27, Tri-Valley beats Juniata. Other scores of note. Camp Hill beats Steel High, and that's Millersburg's. With those two teams are ahead of Millersburg in the power rating. 35-21, Camp Hill beats Steel High tonight. Reading 61-7 over Daniel Boone. Cumberland Valley 44-20 over Carlisle. Dover over Kennerdale 21-13. Wilson 15-9 over Hempfield. Hanover beat Fairfield 53-14. Cedar Cliff 63-27 over Mechanicsburg. Central Dauphin stays unbeaten, and they are one of the top teams in the Mid-Atlantic. 35-17 over State College. Saucon Valley 67-0 over Penn Argle. Newport in a battle of unbeatens in the Tri-Valley League. Newport 38-0 over Susquehanna, and a biggest game of the next 2 weeks for Millersburg are the biggest games of the year, and the first one is next week at Newport. And next week we may have to do a little preview of that game. What Millersburg may need to do, and it's going to start on the offensive defensive line. You can say that for next week. Northern Lebanon 16-13 over Williams Valley. I'm kind of shocked at that, the way Northern Lebanon's been playing this year so far. East Pennsboro 69-0 over James Buchanan. Lime Mountain 28-6 over Halifax, on UDA 34-13 over Pine Grove. Now let's go to the game tonight, Millersburg East Juniata. No scoring the first quarter. Both teams filling each other out. Millersburg held EJ -1 offense in the first quarter. Millersburg, on their second possession, drove 57 yards, fumbled the snap on a second and goal at the 3. Couldn't cash in. Got to be able to cash in when you're inside the 20. But probably the play of the game, what broke the game probably wide open. First possession. The first play of the second quarter, Tyler Erdman, big interception off of Chris Holgan, 60-yard interception return for a touchdown. Winger kicked 7-0 at 8:12 of the second quarter. Then next to the last possession, Millersburg drove down, goes 65 yards, all runs except one. Cole Schomper, 2-yard run at 2:59. The winger kicked 14-7. And then right before half, off of that last score was off of an interception again. So 14 points off of 2 turnovers right off the bat, and Millersburg's up 14-0, and then right before the half, Schomper again a 22-yard run, and Millersburg's 21-7. The only score for EJ came at the 6:37 mark. Mason Hambright 55-yard run, 21-7 at half, and then Millersburg gets one more score in the third, right at the end of the third quarter. Christian Winger 10-yard run, 28-7. So your final stats of the night. Mason Hambright, he did have 12 carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown tonight. That was the lone bright spot for they were able to run the ball 34 times, 165. Another nice performance by Millersburg, averaging 5 yards a carry, 44 carries, 221 yards. Didn't have to rely on the throw. 4 and 9, 50 yards for Bird, 1 pick. And Chris Scholgen, 5 of 13, 62 yards. That's about it. Leading rusher in the game, Mason Hambright, 12 for 100. Cole Schomper from Millersburg tonight, 9 for 70. And 2 scores. Tyler Erdman, pound. Man, he had some nice runs tonight for the Indians. 18 carries, 78 yards. So it sets up the next 2 weeks. Across the river, Millersburg, Newport. Next week, Millersburg. Then at Juniata. Millersburg still a game behind. Game behind both of those teams. And still in the hunt for a piece of that Tri-Valley Championship. Probably the negative again is the penalties. 6 penalties in like 50 yards, and a lot of them are pretty much mental mistakes. There were a couple holes in the third, and then the first, roughing the kicker, a couple holds at critical times. They're going to have probably the offense and defensive line, and they're going to have to play a clean game next week. And that clean is going to be critical. You can't take stupid penalties. The tackling got to clean that up a bit. But Millersburg's going to have to play their A game the next 2 weeks. I believe the skill. I said it at the beginning of the season. I think Millersburg, as a collective unit, have the best skills in the league. But it's going to come down to the offensive defensive line. How are they going to control especially the big boy from Newport, that Chance Allen, the 1AA Division One AA recruit, and they got some other big boys as well. How they can handle him up front, and Dalton Klinger and their quarterback. Those are their main players. How they're gonna have to control them. The next 2 weeks should be fun. We're gonna see what Millersburg's made of the next 2 weeks. Last week we'll slightly talk last week. I feel bad for the Pine Grove kids. That is a small football team that Millersburg played last week at against Pine Grove. Held them to negative 10 yards of offense. No first downs. Millersburg, they had 45 carries, just like last week. 45 for 424 yards last week. And the wealth was spread out. Bird had 10 carries, 161 yards, 3 scores. Tyler Erdman, 14 carries, 80 yards. 1 punt last week, 2 punts this week. And that's what Millersburg has got to do. They got to control the clock, keep Newport's offense off the field. They can't get into a shootout. You saw. It looked like that's what Juniata tried to do, and it did not work. So we're gonna find out the next 2 weeks. Is Millersburg for real? They're climbing. They are third in the power rating. They may jump Steel High this week after losing to Camp Hill, because that's their second or third loss. But if they don't pass them, they're right nipping on Steel High's heels. Steel High will have them because, probably due to the competition they're playing. They played McDevitt, Camp Hill, Milton Hershey. So that's where they got Millersburg on the point wise stuff. But Millersburg did play a AAA school, so that should help them as well this week for the power rating. We're gonna take a break. Then when we come back, we're gonna talk Penn State Eagles. I'm going up to Penn State. They play Indiana. They're gonna have their hands full. And the big question mark for Indiana: can they come to play for the second straight week? Almost beat the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes last week. Do they have enough in the tank to beat Penn State? We will find out. And oh, those woeful Philadelphia Eagles. Can they pull off and get back on the track against the New Orleans Saints? We'll talk about last week's game, and so we'll fill you in there. We'll be back. This is the Lowell Record Show. Lowell Record Network. We'll see you in a few minutes.